I'd like to call the May 18th, 2021 meeting of the Buncombe County Commission to order. Thank you all for being with us this evening. Let's begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and join us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all again for being with us this evening. I'd like to ask if anyone has a cell phone with them to please put it on mute or to turn it off. And also wanted to announce that we have parking validation and bus passes available for any members of the public who are attending the commission meeting today. You can have your parking or transit passes validated by one of the sheriff's officers who is with us this evening. It's valid for today only. Let me read the ethics reminder to the board. In accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by the board, all county commissioners have a duty to obey all applicable laws regarding official actions, to uphold the integrity and independence of the office, to avoid impropriety in the exercise of official duties, to faithfully perform the duties of the office, and to conduct the affairs of the governing board in an open and public manner. Is there any item on the agenda, the outcome of which will have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for any board member? Does any board member have a financial interest in any public contract coming before the board today? There being none, all board members have a duty and obligation to vote on any matters voted on by the board at this meeting tonight. Commissioners, we now come to the consent agenda. Are there any questions about any items on the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda and to follow the remainder of the agenda as published?
I so move.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we now come to public comment, and we have several members who are going to share their comments virtually, and then we'll also take public comment from folks who have signed up at the meeting. And are we doing the virtual comments first? In person? We're doing in person first. Okay. I have a list of folks who have signed up, and I cannot find it. Terry, is it over there in front of you? I think I may have set it down. Or Lamar, do you have another copy? Okay, thanks. Sorry, I have no idea where it went. Here it is. Sorry, I just found it.
Well, I have
Too much paper on my desk. All right. And thank you all for everyone who's taken time to speak to the board this evening. You'll have 3 minutes to address the board. The board won't respond to any comments. This is our chance to listen to the public. And you'll get one light when you have 30 seconds left, and then a green light when your time is up. And please respect our time limits. We want to give every person who's here an equal amount of time to address the board. The first person who has signed up is Carl Soulsby. Yeah, and please feel free to come on up and come to the dais. And after Mr. Soulsby, Don Yelton will follow.
Okay, I'll put this in my pocket. My name is Carl Soulsby. I live at 82 West Oakview Road. I'm a licensed general contractor. I hold an unlimited classification building license as a general contractor. I'm here tonight this evening because I want to discuss the permitting processes and the changes that have come about since the process has been started in planning and zoning. I currently have a project underway, which is, I'm a small builder. I build on a small scale. I purchased a piece of land on Sand Hill Road. I'm building 6 houses out there. I started in 2019. There are a lot of inconsistencies of things that have happened through planning and zoning that have caused a great deal of confusion. And I'm not here to point the finger. I'm here because I want to find a solution, because I do this for a living. And because I make a living at that, there's 3 things I heard a man say one time, and he worked at the block company. And he said he talked to a builder, and he told the guy, he says, the things we do, he says, the 3 things we're we look at that we have to consider is price, quality, and service. And he says, now I'm going to give you two of them and you pick them. He says, I just want one, but I've got to have one. And so I kind of felt like that was a reasonable compromise. And so here today, I've been out 4 weeks trying to get a building permit to start a house that was identified in a minor subdivision application on, I think it was around December of 2019, and it may have been early 2020 in January, but it's been over 18 months. And so the process went from the time that I first applied until now, there's been a transition from who is heading up the process. And at the onset, the process took me, I could go to the inspections and permits and I could submit my application. And within maybe 3.5 days, I could pick up the permits and start working. I've been working for 4 weeks, to try and begin the second phase of an application that I originally submitted in January of 2020. And that same application, I had to resubmit because it was in 2 phases and I needed to watch my time here. So what I'm gonna ask is, I would ask the commissioners, and my wife, as I walked away from the house, she said, that doesn't look like 3 minutes, that looks like 3 hours. And so, you know, I've always had to think outside the box as a general contractor and a builder. I spent 25 years in the masonry business prior to that. And so you gotta think outside the box to get ahead of the curve. And so what I would ask you is for an opportunity to sit down with the commissioners and those that are involved in this to seek an answer to a solution to these problems.
Mr. Silverby, thank you for being here, and we appreciate you taking time to bring these concerns up, and staff are hearing it, we're hearing it too, so thanks for taking time, and we appreciate you
Thank you.
being here.
I appreciate the time.
All right, Don Yelton.
I was halfway here trying to save you time so you won't be here all night. I'm going to say some things, and I hope you consider them, because I think they're very critical to our future, your children's future, and the future of education. And that is critical race theory and its concepts. The first concept of the critical race theory is there's no absolute truth. No absolute truth. That gets rid of God, that gets rid of everything that a lot of us have been taught. It shows only competing narratives, and it says the lived experiences are more than facts. So facts don't count. So what they've done with the coronavirus is said, we've got these facts, that don't count, right? It has to be competing ideas. Secondly, individuals are either an oppressor or a victim. You're predetermined by immutable characteristics such as race to fall in either category. Culture is defined by groups exercising power over each other. That's not what culture is, folks. Culture is your community, how you were raised. Every one of you up there was raised differently. We can take blacks, they're raised differently. We can take Indians, they're raised differently. We can take whites, they're raised differently. I didn't know what Biltmore Forest was, and I didn't even want to be part of Biltmore Forest as a child. Okay? America is systematically racist and must be dismantled. That's your third factor, folks. It sees America as being founded on a system of capitalism, which is racist. In other words, working and making money is racist, and therefore must be disrupted. Now, this proposal rule, if it's not rejected by this board, will end up being taught in your schools. And if you look at the leadership in Asheville and the leadership in this room, I do not see any systemic racism. Do you? And I think you all know what I mean. And I've got 58 seconds, so I will hope I have time to do this. If you think I'm racist, I suggest you come and look at this. I was an elite member of the foundation of the Frederick Douglass Foundation in Washington, D.C., and I gave Dr. Timothy Johnson almost $10,000 in 3 years to get that organization started. And if you've never read Frederick Douglass and his quotes, I suggest you read them, because he begged Lincoln Now, I'm going to use a term that was acceptable at that time. He said, if the Negro succeeds, let him succeed on his own. If he fails, let him fail on his own. That's the words out of the mouth of Frederick Douglass, and by a lot of people in Asheville that wanted to tear down the Vance Monument, getting it torn down. That would have made Frederick Douglass a racist. Please think about what I just said. No facts, no God, no nothing.
Okay. We have 3 other people who have signed up in person. The next one is Kristen Molina Nuart. Hope I pronounced your name close to right. Nuart. Okay, thanks.
Hey y'all, I'm Kristen Molina Nauert. I'm in Swannanoa, and I just want to say that I oppose strongly giving an additional $5 million to advance the business objectives of Pratt & Whitney, which is a subsidiary of Raytheon, which is one of the largest military manufacturers in the world. They have plenty of money, and I feel like we have been bending over backwards to support their corporate interests, and it is not in the interest of our community. That $5 million should go towards small local businesses that are actually sustainable and that won't, as Pratt & Whitney has done, completely abandon us once the cost of labor has risen too high. So my faith in local government representation was completely decimated when I heard about the Raytheon project. Please take the first step in repairing that relationship by not continuing to give them handouts.
All right, thank you. The next person who signed up to speak is Rachel Bliss, followed by Victoria Estes.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Rachel Bliss, and I live downtown Asheville. I, as well, am opposed to the $5 million proposal to fund a 20,000 square foot building for AB Tech. I have nothing against AB Tech. I've taken classes through them, and I am so appreciative of the good rates that they charge and the good teachers that they have. But I am against this proposal. That's $5 million. Add that to the $27 million, and altogether, so far, we're giving $32 million to Pratt & Whitney and Raytheon. Raytheon is the second largest arms dealer in the United States. What they need, they can buy on their own. I realize that they say that this program that we're building this huge building for will be used for other businesses as well. But I also know that that area that was granted by Mr. Cecil has 1,000 acres in it, and that the plans are to have more aeronautical military industrial complex buildings at that site. And so we'll become the training ground for bombs and missiles and bomber jets. And I don't think Asheville needs that. Asheville doesn't want that. $5 million. That's 10 times the child subsidy for 2021. That's also 10 times more than you provide for aging services, 10 times more than ag profitability and sustainability, 10 times more than conservation easements, 30 times more than the Blue Horizons project. And it's about as much as what you're funding for mountain mobility at this time. It's even 2.5 times more than what the county is providing for affordable housing. It seems like we're immersed in a banality of evil. Asheville and Buncombe County are the only areas in the state or in the world with those names. We deserve better. We deserve leadership that will show the world that we are a peaceful area. And I appreciate your time today, and I really hope you'll reconsider what you plan to do. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Victoria Estes.
Hello, my name is Victoria. I'm from South Asheville. Commissioners, every day when I wake up, I am engulfed with anxiety over the state of the world. Climate change, ongoing genocide, the housing crisis, and the list goes on. Each day I ask myself what I can do to make this world a better place, and I set out just to do that. I'm involved in over 5 organizations that I volunteer with full-time because there are so many areas of our world that need advocacy, especially here in Western North Carolina. Lately, I've been seeing a lot of news from around the world showing children being arrested, bombed, and losing their entire families in one fell swoop. I am seeing people all over the world struggle for liberation from oppression, and my hearts are with them, which is why I'm here today. I cannot be in Gaza, Palestine, Bolivia, or any of the other countries that are suffering from Western imperialism. But what I can do is take a stand here and be in solidarity with these folks. I am here asking you all once again how you can justify bringing a company here that profits off of genocide. You say it is beyond your control, but it isn't. Not here. Not when you are actively incentivizing the construction of the Pratt & Whitney plant. When these children get murdered, Pratt & Whitney profits. And when they profit, you profit as well, which means you are just as guilty as the people who are out on the ground committing these atrocities. I have told you before the statistics of Pratt & Whitney and of the wars that we fund in the Middle East, so I won't waste my breath repeating myself. What I will say is that your inaction is why democracy is failing. Because as we all know, what makes democracy work is the people's engagement with our elected officials. And when you consistently ignore the voices of the people that you are sworn to represent, you are spitting in the face of democracy. It is my hope that your children grow up and become radicals like me, who then turn and ask you why you did absolutely nothing to address climate change and to stop the endless wars and mass genocide that plagues our planet. Because as I've said before, the military-industrial complex is one of the leading causes of climate change, pollution, needless death, and the overinflated military budget, which keeps people in America from having the things that truly keep us safe, like housing, healthcare, union jobs, and clean air and water. And on top of this, since I still have a moment, the county is set to do a massive tax hike using the pandemic as an excuse. Your assessors have way overpriced homes in Black communities, particularly South Side and Burton Street, knowing that many people there don't have lawyers or money to challenge it. The result, combined with the city's tax hike, will be a major hike in property tax bills that disproportionately hits Black communities. Commissioners, tell me why you insist on harming our BIPOC communities, both here and across the world. How do you sleep at night, knowing that you hold places of power and you do nothing? Thank you.
All right. I think that's all the in-person folks. So we're going to shift now to the virtual comments, and I think we're going to take them in the order listed here. So I believe Grant Millen is
Followed
next.
by James Fulton.
Okay, I'll just, y'all will handle
Hi,
it.
hi, Grant Millen, longtime Buncombe resident. And I just wanted to say that as a honorably discharged veteran, just calling what the military does and what government does evil and the genocide machine or what have you, because Pratt & Whitney exists and they landed here in Buncombe, and you're going to incentivize job creation. It actually, that's going to fall on deaf ears for a whole bunch of people in Buncombe. So those arguments didn't land with me as a citizen, especially. And I'm going to be talking about a concept called human security, which it kind of gets towards, more just society, but at the same time, it doesn't ignore the need for national security. I wanted to say quickly about Don Yeltsin. I've read a American Bar Association article on critical race theory, and critical theory is just a kind of a column in what philosophy is about, modern philosophy is about. And it's not surprising that there's a critical race theory track. And And what it emphasizes is that there's structural racism, and it's not about denying God and such things as Don was trying to introduce. I just wanted to say the Safety and Justice Challenge, the MacArthur Safety and Challenge, I wanted to know more about who is getting, which nonprofit, local nonprofits are getting monies from that 3.5 million from the MacArthur Safety and Justice Challenge grants. It's two components, two grant components. And it's an accomplishment. There's a big number there too about diverting people from the Buncombe County Jail, and we should know what that number is. The webpage is informative, and I looked at the budget expenditures there, but more focus needs to be is needed. I'm applying for the Safety and Justice Community Engagement Work Group. I was part of the City of Asheville Community Engagement Academy, and that went fairly well. In the Safety and Justice Challenge, there's a component about persons with disabilities, and I will bring that up later. You don't mention persons with disabilities, but we should, because that's a bottleneck actually in that component. I look forward to talking about the Street Illicit Fentanyl Solutions Report along the lines of safety and justice. Thank you.
Our next speaker is James Fulton, to be followed by Joe Scotto. James, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is James Fulton. I live in Arden. I'd always assumed that when we elect public officials that we can expect that they will represent the interests and values of the citizenry while administering the levers of government. However, you are not representing many of my values and instead seem determined to do whatever socialist and ultra-liberal activists want done. I only recently began attending these meetings after coming to believe that your agenda is not merely left-leaning, but is instead fairly radical in its focus and execution. Everything now seems to be about skin color and how it should be used to determine distribution of benefits and rewrite history, and to identify who are the oppressors and who are the victims. I'm here to begin raising my voice against the lack of accountability and fiscal responsibility that I fear is overtaking county government. I would love for you to prove me wrong because I have my own full-time job to do. I and others have asked about what evidence was gathered to demonstrate a need for the NDO that you shoved through this committee last month, just in time for Gay Pride Month and Juneteenth. How can that be seen as anything other than a political game? No response has been offered by county staff on the question of needs assessment, and I have no reason to believe that there was any real effort made to study the perceived need. You should suspend the fines that you want to level against struggling small businesses for the crime of disagreeing with your idea of what type of employees and dress code are appropriate for their businesses. Or you should enact some protections of small business owners' rights to due process, which appear to be rapidly vanishing across the country. This evening, Buncombe County Manager has requested guidance from the commissioners on a letter of support for a refugee resettlement program. I'm not opposed to the idea of resettling refugees here. However, there are some obvious questions that should be asked, in my opinion, before we jump into a new or continuing commitment. Some of those questions might be, what is the average cost of this program per refugee to Buncombe County? What are the benefits to Buncombe County? Is this a budgeted expense? How is it funded? Is there a policy that offers guidance on how proposals like this one and the NDO should be evaluated? As a newcomer to these meetings, I'm just looking to better understand how county management is expected to demonstrate transparency, accountability, and fiscal responsibility. God bless America.
Our next speaker is Joe, to be followed by Catherine, who has not joined the call yet. So if Catherine does not join the call, then Ken will be next, following Joe.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Joe Scott. I'm from Black Mountain. My name is Joe Scott. I'm from Black Mountain. I just wanted to express to the commissioners, thanks for letting me speak. I'm here to speak on behalf or, to tell you how a wonderful asset the Black Mountain Library is to the community. One of the main reasons is that is a walk to or bike to destination. And I would hope in your future plans that you renovate rather than relocate the library. It really is a wonderful place. It serves the community, Black Mountain and the citizens of Black Mountain so well. And you don't have to get in your car to go to it. You can drive to or ride your bike to get there. So that's basically all I had to say. Just express my opinion as a citizen how the Black Mountain Library is such a valuable resource to the community. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Catherine has not joined the call, so our next speaker will be Ken Jones. Ken, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you and good evening, commissioners. I'm here to speak in opposition to the proposal to fund a facility for Pratt & Whitney, and I wrote you a poem. It's called Following the Money. The $27 million tax rebate must have seemed an easy decision for you. Had to do it or they wouldn't come. And we need them to come because, they promise jobs. Jobs mean money. Jobs are the currency that you bank on for approval and for looking the other way, away from climate change, away from war emergencies, away from polluting our own water. It's about money. Money that comes from we the people to Congress, to military, to industrial, from the Pentagon to Raytheon, to make weapons and profits galore, which kill children and other humans in Yemen and Gaza and God knows where. It's about money. Raytheon extorts from you, so it won't pay taxes, money that you offer to build an edifice for its workers, with one of you at the foundation. Money that comes from we the people, money that could be spent on jobs that build a bridge to a green tomorrow, not to a tree-stripped road that leads to a dead end. They say that money corrupts like power, that money is power. Dorothy Parker said, if you want to know what God thinks of money, just look at the people he gave it to. I look at who governments and chambers of commerce and rich land barons give money to, and I can see money corrupts your worldview, your sense of possibility, your compassion for people on the receiving end of your decisions, your stewardship of the world for future generations. If you follow money, it changes you. Emerson said, money often costs too much. What is the cost of giving money to Raytheon? More than the jobs can pay off, more than you can wash your hands with. Thank you.
We do not have Laura on the call, so our last speaker for public comment will be Melody Shank. Melody, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. And good evening, commissioners. Thank you for providing this opportunity for comment. I am a resident of Swannanoa, and I'm a lifetime educator. And as a lifetime educator in the public sphere, I am a strong supporter of public support of education, and I'm actually a supporter of universities like AB Tech, but I'm here to express my opposition to giving an additional money to support the Pratt & Whitney factory that is coming here. As a previous caller or a previous commenter said, Pratt & Whitney doesn't need our money. Pratt & Whitney annually, their revenue is $14.5 billion. And in the last 2 years, they have received almost $10 billion in defense contracts from the federal government, which is our tax money as well. So federal money comes to Pratt and Whitney, state money's coming to Pratt and Whitney, county money's coming to Pratt and Whitney, and foundation money's coming to Pratt and Whitney for them to build the plant. And now you want to put aside $5 million more dollars to support the building of the facility for AB Tech. And I wonder what Pratt and Whitney's giving us. I certainly know that jobs, jobs, jobs is what this the deal is about. But why is it that, and maybe they are, but why isn't it that they're paying for their own training facility? It seems like they aren't giving the community anything except the potentially 800 jobs, and of course the coattail industries that they might bring. But I'm tired of corporations asking for handouts and not really being partners in the community to give back to us. So thank you very much for your time.
That concludes all of the virtual public comments.
All right, thank you. I want to thank everyone who took time to share their perspective with the board this evening. All right, next up is good news, and I know Commissioner Amanda Edwards had an announcement that she wanted to share.
Thanks. I just wanted to share with you all that I recently discovered that I had been selected to participate in the inaugural cohort of the Hunt State Policy Fellows, where I will be working with other leaders across the state of North Carolina to learn more about educational policy from pre-K to higher education. I know you all know that education is very integral in my life, being the daughter of a kindergarten teacher, I'm married to an educator, parent of a public school student, and I work in higher education myself. So I'm excited to be chosen for this incredible opportunity with the Hunt Institute, and I hope to learn best practices and new approaches for shaping effective public education policy that meets individual and community needs, and looking forward to sharing more of that with you all as I proceed beginning in July. Thanks for letting me share that.
That's awesome. Congratulations, Amanda. All right. Avril, were there any other items to share under good news? Okay. All right. Next, we have several presentations, and the first is going to be an update from the Greater Asheville Regional Airport Authority and sharing their annual report. And Lou Bleiweiss, the director of the Asheville Airport, is here with us to share it. Thank you for being with us. Lou, good to see you.
To the south of us, and they're proud of their 21 destinations. They are a larger airport than us. However, we have 23 destinations so far this year, so Asheville's doing better than some of the airports around us. From a passenger basis for 2020, we had a total of 704,472. Unfortunately, that was down 56%. Seats in the market, again, because of COVID, were down. Total of 624,426, which was down 40%. Operations from an airline side were 16,856, which is down 31%. And our general aviation and military was at 41,348, which was down 18%. Construction on the airport continues. We completed the utility infrastructure project that is leading up to our new terminal building, at a cost of roughly $1.8 million. We completed a new ground transportation lot that handles our taxis and our Ubers and Lyfts. That was included in the new parking lots across the street for another $1.8 million. We are working on our south commercial aircraft apron. It's under construction. We hope to have it finished in the early fall at a price of $9.5 million. We did commission our runway after a lengthy delay, and that was commissioned on November 5th. The project should wrap up by us converting the temporary runway back to a permanent taxiway, and that should be done by midsummer. And then, of course, we purchased the Broadmoor Golf Course in August at a price of $2.75 million. Last big project that's underway is our terminal project. We started that last year. We had numerous public hearings or public meetings to get input. We had over 4,000 solicitations from the general public on what Western North Carolina means to us and to you, and we have been able to incorporate that into our design. We have completed the conceptual design of that terminal building, working on schematic and interior design now. We're hoping to start ancillary construction this fall, with the terminal construction actually taking place next summer. Lastly, on a funding and a construction process, we have received close to $28 million in the three different CARES Act funding that has helped us with projects and operations throughout this pandemic. The only one community project or outreach that we were able to do last year was in January, and that was our Wings for Autism program. Unfortunately, everything else, because of COVID, was put on hold. From a financial standpoint, our operating revenue for the year was $9.6 million. Our operating expenses were $9.2 million, so even during COVID and a downturn that I mentioned with our passengers, we were able to make a $400,000 net revenue profit, and that was the lowest in the history of the airport that I have been there in the past 13 years. At the end of the year, we had $169,081,647 in assets. That was an increase of $14.2 million over 2019. And lastly, every 2 years, the State Division of Aviation Department does an economic impact study for all the airports in the state. And the Asheville Regional Airport contributes $1.95 billion to the economic impact of Western North Carolina, Buncombe County, and Asheville. That concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Lou. Commissioners, are there any questions about goings on at the Asheville Airport these days? All right, well, Lou, I know it's been a crazy year for everyone, but particularly for folks in the aviation sector, so thank you for helping navigate through this tough year, and appreciate the update this evening.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
All right, Commissioners, next up, we are going to have a proclamation recognizing Foster Care Month, and Commissioner Jasmine Beach Ferrara is going to read the proclamation, and I think we have a couple of folks from Health and Human Services who are here to receive it and maybe share a few words as well.
Good evening, and Lizzie Scheimer, Amy Huntsman, thank you so much for being here. I'll present the proclamation and then turn the mic over to you all. Thank you for your leadership in this area. This is a proclamation to honor Foster Care Month. Whereas the family, serving as the primary source of love, security, safety, and support, is the very foundation of our community. And whereas in Buncombe County, the lives of hundreds of children and families are disrupted every year by crisis or conflicts in the home. And whereas in Buncombe County, there are over 340 children and youth in foster care that provides a safe, secure, and stable temporary home until permanent housing is identified. And whereas foster families in Buncombe County open their homes and hearts to children whose families are in crisis and play a vital role in helping children and families heal, reconnect, and launch children into successful adulthood. And whereas foster families are essential to the foundation of our communities and perform an extraordinary service by working in partnership with agencies and families to nurture children and provide an opportunity for healthy growth and development. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of Commissioners for the County of Buncombe as follows: that the month of May 2021 be proclaimed Foster Care Month in Buncombe County, that all Buncombe residents be urged to recognize the important role foster parents play in our community and volunteer their energies on behalf of children in foster care, that this proclamation be effective upon its adoption May 18th, 2021, signed by Brownie Newman, Chairman, Buncombe County Board of Commissioners. Thank you both so much.
In foster care, we ask families to love children, honor their biological family, their culture, and work with their birth family to reunify. We uphold the value of reunification with families above all else, and we look at foster care as a support to families, not as a substitute for parents. We just wanted to thank you all for your proclamation and to honor and highlight a few of the foster families we're lucky to have within our community. Laura Hartshorn is a foster mom who has a home for teenagers, which is a difficult task, and just like a baby, teens need the security of knowing that someone is there for them no matter the circumstances and to celebrate their achievements. Laura is one of the few foster parents who takes on the challenge of fostering young adults, and she does so with an open and cheerful heart. When asked why Laura loves fostering teens, she says, "The transition to adulthood is greatly impacted by how our toolbox becomes as teenagers. My greatest joy comes from the teens asking questions and working together on finding the answers. Buncombe County DHHS and our community is blessed to have Laura as a foster parent." Miss Sarita Holloway has been a foster parent for Buncombe County since 2008. For 13 years, she's responded to Buncombe County's most hurt and traumatized teens. She's a single mother who has handled some of the most difficult teen behaviors with ease. Even though she worked a full-time job in the healthcare field, she welcomed as many as 4 teens at a time into her home. Sarita's philosophy in fostering is to treat teens with respect, and she in turn inspires them to give the same respect. She has a firm, no-nonsense parenting style. She is loving enough to embrace them when they are hurting, but provides strict guidance and discipline when needed. Sarita has also inspired her grown son, Anthony, to become a single foster dad, also licensed with our agency. Her daughter Ariel works in partnership with her as a support to the teens in her home, and she has truly spurred a legacy of fostering within her own family for generations to come. Miss Nikki Montgomery. Nicole Montgomery has been licensed with our agency for the last 10 years. During that time, she's adopted a child and provided respite care and long-term placement for many children. Nicole does a great job of working with birth families and has successfully helped 6 children transition back to their birth families or to live with other family members. Nicole is very nurturing and always has a positive attitude and is a true asset to our organization. Ashley and Brian Moore. This family fostered an infant child for 2 years and helped her reunify with her parents. They have the ideal qualities for fostering children: reliability and understanding of trauma and developmental needs, knowing the importance of co-parenting with birth parents, strong communication skills, good boundaries, and resilience. Buncombe County DHHS is honored to have them be part of our fostering community. Miss Jenny White. For 2 years, Jenny and her mother, Belinda, provided a stable and loving home for a gifted and talented little girl. The two worked together to give her family experiences and attention she so craved, and found great joy in completing craft projects and puzzles together, as well as trying their hand at new and exciting recipes. They collectively cultivated her many natural talents and abilities and devoted even more time and attention to building her self-confidence and positive sense of self. Jenny fiercely advocated for her needs, ensuring that she received the best education and extracurricular opportunities, the best services, and finally, the best forever family possible. Her successes were also Jenny's successes, and Jenny would beam with pride when she shared even the smallest update with the team. Though it is sad to see her leave their home, Jenny and Belinda have experienced immeasurable joy in watching the relationship between their foster daughter and her pre-adoptive family blossom and grow strong. Licensed families such as Jenny with supports like her mom are an asset to Buncombe County and the community as a whole. We are honored to know them and work alongside them. In the vein of fostering communities, and maybe a few days late, we also wanted to offer you all some of our foster masks.
Oh,
So
thank you.
Amy.
It's never too late. Let me share this with you.
Thank you
Thank
so much.
you. Thank you both so much.
All right, Lizzie and Amy, thank you so much for being with us this evening. We're happy to do the proclamation, and we appreciate all of the great work that people do for Buncombe County and all of our partners in this space around supporting foster families in Buncombe County. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioners, the next item is a presentation on the county manager's FY22 recommended budget.
Waiting for Max to bring up the PowerPoint. But Commissioners, I do want to thank you for the opportunity to present the recommended budget for fiscal year 2022. This time last year, we were trying to predict the impact of the novel coronavirus on our community, our economy, and especially the impact on the county's budget. Given the rarity of a global pandemic and the unknown nature of a novel virus, we were extremely conservative in our forecasting. I am happy to report that under your leadership, we implemented early intervention strategies that proved effective in our response to the virus. Along with federal and state aid, our economy was not as severely impacted as we projected. Our sales taxes have rebounded, and our property tax collection rate was higher than anticipated. This has allowed us to prepare a budget for 2022 that advances your strategic plan, continues to address our infrastructure and our staffing needs. I don't see the PowerPoint up there, but I believe it's getting ready to come. You do have a copy of this PowerPoint at your desk, so, and it's online that others can follow along. So for 2022, I am recommending a budget of $359,953,720 for the general fund. As you know, this is a revaluation year, and with that, I'm recommending a 48.8 cents tax rate, which is 2 cents above the calculated revenue neutral rate of 46.8 cents. The 5-year tax rate history is depicted here. We have kept the rate relatively flat over the past 4 years and will continue to manage the budget to provide quality services at the lowest responsible tax rate. We began our budget planning in December with a board budget retreat where you outline your top priorities within the strategic plan. In honoring our commitment to transparency, we held work sessions or briefings each month as we developed and explored in depth every aspect of this recommended spending plan. The public hearing on the recommended budget is scheduled for June 1st. This is during your regular Board of Commissioners meeting. The strategic plan has 4 community focus areas and 3 foundational areas. And these areas continue to guide our work and has been our focus as we develop and prepare the fiscal year 2022 budget. Departments additionally began to align their work to advance the goals of the strategic plan by developing departmental goals that support the focus areas of the plan. As stated, staff has worked to focus our efforts on further the goals and initiatives of the strategic plan. The graph provides a breakdown as to how the general fund budget is represented across the community focus areas as well as the foundational areas. Residents' well-being and educated, capable communities make up the largest percentage of our spending. Of the $360 million, 17% or $59.6 million is invested in providing a strong foundation of operational excellence, ensuring resources, and a focus on equity. Included in the recommended budget in our educated and capable community focus area is $92.2 million for our education partners. This represents 2.8% growth for AB Tech and 3% growth for both Asheville City and Buncombe City schools, Buncombe County schools. Our early childhood education and development funding is recommended at $3.75 million, and this includes a 2% growth that is required by the enabling resolution. In our environment and energy stewardship focus area, I'm recommending $1.3 million for alternatively fueled vehicles. This represents 74% of the vehicles eligible for replacement this year, and $750,000 for conservation easements, equating to 19 easements for next year. In our resident well-being focus area, I'm recommending the continuation of the community paramedicine program. The grant that funded this pilot phase of this program ends in December. I'm recommending $241,000 in investment needed to fund this program through the remainder of the fiscal year. In the vibrant economy focus area, we continue our commitment to economic development at $4.5 million and our support of affordable housing at $2.3 million. In the foundational focus areas of equity, operational excellence, and resources, I'm recommending $2.5 million in information technologies infrastructure, much of which was deferred from last year due to the uncertainty of the COVID impact. In this budget, I'm recommending 27 general fund positions totaling $1.47 million. One position in the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund at an estimated $63,000, and one position in the Health and Dental Fund at an estimated $49,000. The positions are: one, new Farmland Preservation Program Coordinator. This position will support the new additional conservation easements transactions. With a Racial Equity Action Plan nearing completion, I'm recommending an equity office position to ensure the successful pursuit of our equity-oriented goals. One position as an election training specialist. For emergency services, one new training officer, one new fire marshal, and the 4 community paramedics positions that are continued when the grant expires in December. These positions will become effective January of 2022. One finance accounting position, one internal auditor. In legal and risk, one administrative support position, 9 part-time library assistance positions. In planning, one code enforcement officer, and one community development analyst to support affordable housing. This position will be effective January of 2022. For pretrial release, one full-time and 2 part-time screener positions. These are continuation positions when the Safety and Justice Challenge Grant that are funding these positions expire in January of 2022. And the last position in the general fund is in the tax office as an assessment clerk. In solid waste, it will be one scale house attendant, and the health and dental fund, this is a temporary position we're converting to part-time as a physician's extender. The general fund comparison for 2022 recommended to FY 22-21 amended shows a 5% growth in revenues and a 3% growth in expenditures, and a corresponding reduction in the appropriated fund balance. For 2021 year-end projected fund balance minimum of the 15% is $50.1 million. With a 2022 appropriated fund balance of $8.9 million, we remain 3.6% above the 15% minimum established in policy. The general fund revenue budget is adopted by source. The fiscal year 2022 revenue budget totals $3,351.1 million, with an appropriated fund balance of $8.9 million for a total general fund budget of $360 million. Highlighting our 3 largest sources of revenues, property tax revenue makes up 67% of the total revenue at $234 million. Intergovernmental represents the second largest source of revenue at 12%, or $43 million. And our third largest source of revenue is 10% sales tax at $36 million. On the expenditure side, the general fund budget is adopted by function. The fiscal year 2022 expenditure budget totals $360 million, hence a balanced budget. The largest percent share of the budget is in the education function. It represents 27%, or $96.4 million. Human Services is next at 26%, or $88.4 million. Public Safety is recommended at $73.1 million. General Government, $55.8 million. The debt service totals $20.4 million. Economic and Physical Development, $10.6 million. And Culture and Recreation at $8.7 million. And our other financing sources, which includes interfund transfers for transportation, capital projects, and special projects, totals $6.5 million. For education, I am recommending $7.3 million for AB Tech, which is 2.8% increase over FY21, and this is their full request. For K-12 schools, I'm recommending a total of $84.9 million. At the average daily membership share, this provides $13.1 million to Asheville City Schools and $71.9 million to Buncombe County Schools. This is a 3% increase for both school systems over their fiscal year 21 amounts. This does not fully fund their requests. You may recall the schools had 4 non-negotiables or unfunded mandates. 2 of those amounts we know, and there are the retirement and health insurance increases, and 2 depends on the state budget. This recommended amount covers the known expenses, that of retirement and health care. After the state sets the amount of salaries, we can revisit those other 2 items at that time. Now we will review the capital.
Arvel, can I ask a question?
Sure.
While we're on that. They made a request regarding the compensation for the school board members.
That would be, yes, that is included.
That is included?
Yes.
At this funding level, it is anticipated they could
Yes, sir.
do what they want to do on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Capital projects and IT projects. We had a capital review team that made recommendations, that reviewed every project that was provided from our departments. And in the general fund, I'm recommending the following projects. These are the debt-funded projects first, and then I will talk about PAYGO. In the debt-funded projects, we're recommending $4.7 million. This is 200 College Street building envelope repairs, addition to the Lake Julian bathroom, the installation of solar on the East Asheville Library and the Public Safety Training Center, and 40 Cox Avenue interior renovations. This was recommended by the facility study, and this will be covered from existing debt and excess 2015 debt proceeds. The recommended pay-as-you-go projects for capital and information technologies total $4.175 million, and they're outlined here. I will point out that we will continue a vehicle replacement for the emergency services and the sheriff's office. We will also begin to deploy dashboard cameras in the sheriff vehicles. Also, I am recommending that we move forward with planning for the forward-facing departments at 35 Woodfin, as outlined in the facility study. As is required for the budget cycle following a tax reappraisal year, the revenue-neutral tax rate is calculated for the county property tax rate, as well as each of the taxing districts under the county scope of responsibility. The rates are listed here. Of these districts, 9 are recommended at revenue neutral, and 12 are recommended above revenue neutral, ranging from 0.7 of a cent to 2.39 cents. All documents associated with the fiscal year 2022 recommended budget and the 2022 proposed fee schedule is available with today's agenda. The fiscal year 2022 Budget Explorer is an online tool the public can use to explore the county's budget in more detail. The public is invited to share input on the recommended budget in person on June 1st at 5 p.m., which is your regular scheduled meeting, and it's held here at 200 College in room 326. Again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to present the recommended budget, and I look forward to your feedback, input as you read through these documents over the next several weeks. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Pender. The next item on our agenda is a public hearing to consider a rezoning request on Smoky Park, and Sharon Capizelli from our planning department is going to present this item.
Thank you. And I do have a PowerPoint presentation. So again, thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. My name is Shannon Capizzali, and I'm a planner with the Buncombe County Planning and Development Department. This is the review of ZPH 2021-00021. It's the application for the Smoky Park rezoning. This public hearing was properly noticed, and all applicable parties were notified of the meeting in accordance with general statute and Buncombe County Code. Let me see if I can figure out what I am doing here. There we go. Sorry, bear with me one moment while I fight with the remote. It did advance one slide.
I did that.
Oh, you did? I'm not sure.
It's turned off.
Oh,
There you go.
okay, thanks. Okay, sorry about that. So the applicant is Kane Investment Group LLC. The owner of the property is L&R Properties, Cogburn Family Properties LLC, and Judith Sharp. The properties are located on Smoky Park Highway in Candler. The zoning includes neighborhood service on 3 of the parcels and R1 on 1 parcel, with adjacent districts including R1 and commercial service zoning. And this application seeks to rezone all 4 of the parcels to CS, commercial service. Staff does not have concerns about spot zoning, excuse me, as a result of the adjacent commercial service district to the west and the inclusion of multiple parcels in the request. And the intent of commercial service zoning is to provide locations for clustered commercial development in areas with access to major traffic arteries and where public water and sewer are expected. So the application includes roughly 4.16 acres of land spread across those 4 parcels. The current use includes an existing self-storage facility and vacant land. Public water is available, and sewer is roughly 800 feet to the east on Smoky Park Highway. The properties are located in the combined water and sewer priority areas based on the county's land use map. The development patterns surrounding these properties include a mix of single-family and multifamily homes, commercial uses, vacant land, and churches. And this is a map showing some of those uses just as an example of what's in the area. So this rezoning request meets the goals of the land use plan and of the strategic plan, as it's located along a major transportation corridor, is in close proximity to public infrastructure, and is outside of sensitive environmental areas. Staff recommends approval of the application to rezone the properties. On April 19th, the Planning Board reviewed this application, and at their meeting on May 3rd, they voted to recommend approval of the rezoning request. I'm available to answer any questions that you have from a staff perspective, and Robert Ost is here representing the application as well.
All right, thank you, Shannon. Commissioners, are there any initial questions? We will have a public hearing on the proposed rezoning. All right, and is it okay if Mr. Ost addresses us during the public hearing? Or would it be better for him to do it now?
I believe it would be best for him to address during the public hearing before anything is closed.
Okay, that's fine. All right, let's go ahead and open the public hearing. I'll open the public hearing at 6:09 p.m. And Mr. Ost, we would be happy to hear from you now.
Thank you, Chairman Newman and members of the Buncombe Board of Commissioners. I do have a PowerPoint that if we could get that pulled up, and hopefully Shannon has worked the bugs out on the remote for me. Well, I am.
Here it comes.
Here we go. Okay. My name is Bob Ost. I'm with the law firm of McGuire Wood and Bissett here in town, and I'm here representing the applicant Kane Investment Group. Tim Kane is not here in person. He is watching the meeting, and he's available by cell phone if we need him to answer any questions. But I hope that I can answer the questions that you have. I want to thank Shannon and the planning staff for their analysis and presentation. We agree that this request hits many of the marks on the matrix in your comprehensive plan. And if you look at it, it makes sense for a lot of reasons. I think okay. All right. Well, here is a picture of the facility, and what you're going to see here are slides of the site and some of the surrounding area. This is typical of an area where the use was established before zoning was applicable to this area. The property itself is zoned NS, or Neighborhood Services, and although this is a self-storage facility, these self-storage facilities are not permitted uses in the NS zone, but they are permitted in the CS zone, which is why we are asking for a rezone to that category. But unless it's rezoned, Mr. Kane is faced with the prospect of not being able to upgrade this facility. And so one of the reasons for this request is to eliminate this nonconformity and allow for investment in the current use, improve it. And another reason for the rezoning request is to make it consistent with other zoning in the area, which, as you saw from the display of the zoning map, is a lot of it is already CS or commercial services. And it's also appropriate for a major transportation corridor like Smoky Park Highway. These are on the left here is a photograph looking east toward Asheville, and you see there the undeveloped lots to the east of this facility. And the first one belongs to Judith Sharp or Judith McElrath, and the next one down belongs to the Cogburn family. On the right here is the lumber yard. Is really a logging operation that is directly adjacent to the property on the west. These are some more slides that show the general character of the area. And what you see here along Smoky Park Highway is an area that's in transition, and the characteristics that you see are reflect the fact this area was unzoned for many years. Most of these photographs are taken between the site and heading into town. The photograph on the right here is Smoky Park Highway is 5 lanes, so you're in closer to town. Again, these are photographs of the area in the near the property we're seeking to have rezoned. What you see here are photographs that were taken from the residential area up behind this. On the left is a photograph of the back side of the self-storage facility, and you can see there's a grade separation. And when this property is redeveloped, because of the differences in zoning, there'll be a required buffer between the residential property and any commercial use. So we think that this rezoning request is consistent with your comprehensive plan for a number of reasons. This basically summarizes what I've shown you in the photographs. The arrow represents the approximate location of this property, and it's between two hubs on in your comprehensive plan. More statements in support of the planning consistency, and we think that for all the reasons that have been covered by staff and in my own report, that this area is appropriate for rezoning to the commercial services designation. Be glad to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ost. I don't think there's any questions at this time, but
And I will say that we engage with the neighbors. We sent them all direct correspondence. We've had conversations with a couple of them, and there's no concerns been expressed other than an interest in the buffer.
great. All right. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak during the public hearing to the rezoning request? All right. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing at 6:15 p.m. And is there any other information from the staff that we need to know?
I will just note that with the passing of the 160D text amendments recently, your consistency statement has now been combined into the board's resolution, so you'll only need to vote one time instead of two going forward.
All right, very good. Does a commissioner want to make a motion and see if they can do that? I'll take a stab at it. Okay. All right, I'm going to make a motion to approve the rezoning to commercial services, the CS zoning designation, finding that the request is consistent with the county's comprehensive land use plan, including the fact that it is reasonably proximate to major transportation corridors, its proximity to infrastructure, including water and sewer service, is outside of steep slope areas, outside of high elevation areas. And so for those reasons, I'm supporting the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you for being with us. We appreciate it. All right, that concludes our public hearings for this evening. And Ms. Pender, do you have any items to report under the county manager's report?
I have quite a few, sir.
Okay.
First, the reason why the video was so slow in coming when I was doing my presentation is because staff also worked on a video that they wanted to show, and I forgot.
Okay.
I would like for Max to go ahead and bring up the budget.
This is kind of our catch-all item for just such a circumstance.
This past year brought many challenges for Buncombe County, not just about keeping our population healthy and safe, but how do we, as county employees, continue to provide all of our high level of services in the face of so many unknown factors? How would we continue to work directly with the public, contribute to our new strategic goals, and how and where would we even work in the face of the health and social distancing difficulties of COVID-19? The answer to these questions came from the ingenuity of our hardworking county staff, our ability to adapt quickly, to come up with new ideas, to innovate our workflows. It took great leadership from our administration and commissioners. The challenges of our departments in the wake of COVID-19 were vast, but we did it and met the challenges head on.
2020 was a big year here at Election Services. During the largest election in American history, we had to learn to build virtual settings for poll worker training and board meetings, create safe spaces for in-person voting, and make a major shift towards absentee voting. Everything we did, we had to figure out a new way to do it, and I'm proud to say Buncombe County ran a smooth election with no COVID outbreaks.
COVID-19 completely changed the landscape and priorities around how information technology conducted its duties. Not only were we continuing to provide our high level of support to the departments and emergency services for the community, but we had to create new virtual environments for public and interdepartmental interactions, facilitate additional hardware, software, and infrastructure, while also supporting and engineering solutions for our Emergency Operations Center in person and virtually.
It's been a hard year, this pandemic, but the community markets were able to continue to support our community by providing safe and healthy food and community resources to our residents following COVID safety and health regulations.
During the pandemic, the Recreation Services team maintained essential daily roles while volunteering to learn how to drive ambulances, answer 911 calls, distribute food and vaccines, and work in the county's Emergency Operations Center. This year has proven that providing safe, equitable, accessible parks is essential for our community's resiliency, wellness, and prosperity.
The libraries were committed to delivering entertaining and enriching resources during an isolating time. We were successful in transforming our service model to deliver library materials via curbside service and move our popular programming to a virtual setting.
Since we remained operating basically as normal, managing an inspections department through the pandemic was a huge challenge. As you would expect, there were a lot of anxieties on behalf of staff, so the first thing we had to do was create a work environment in which they felt safe and their concerns were being listened to and addressed.
It changed the manner in which we provide service, but it didn't stop us from serving the citizens of Buncombe County.
Here at Tax Assessment, not only did we have a revaluation, we had to conduct it during COVID, which brought a lot of new issues and challenges for us here in the Tax Assessment Office. I think we adapted well. We still provided a high level of service to the community, and we had a successful reappraisal.
COVID-19 taught us a lot in how to provide our services, both virtually and in new ways in person, to maintain a safe environment for our clients. In fact, we even built a new, larger lobby area to make sure we can assist our community members responsibly and responsively.
The last fiscal year has been one like no other. The only analogy I can think of is it was like a major storm, one that we weathered. It did have impacts on our community in so many ways. It threatened the health of our community, it threatened the economic security of our community, and it threatened the emotional and behavioral well-being of our community. But we weathered the storm. As the year ahead comes, we're moving now out of the storm. We're starting to see a little bit of sunshine again, and we're going now toward rebuilding and renewal.
Buncombe County is proud of all of its hardworking staff, proud of the way we were able to continue providing our high level of services during difficult, mentally, and physically exhausting times. Thank you to the Board of Commissioners for continuing to support this excellent workforce, and thank you for your leadership and guidance this past year. Here is to 2022, Buncombe County.
Thanks, Max, and thank you, Commissioners. That was well said. The staff did a fantastic job, but it was your leadership that really made the difference, so thank you for that. And with that video, there's a couple of items. This is Emergency Management Services Appreciation Week. So I do want to take a moment, especially when you saw what they had helped us to get through this past year, just to say thank you for them and on our partners. They really helped to lean in with us as we went through this last year. So I just want to take a moment to appreciate them during this week. Secondly, you might remember that y'all agreed that starting June 1st, we would go to fully in-person public comments and the virtual would go away. So I just want to remind you that starting June 1st, the parts you heard over the Zoom would go away. It would be all in person. And lastly, we received interim guidance regarding the Locally Fiscal Recovery Act. And I've asked Rachel Nygaard if she would give us an update on where we are with that. So Rachel is here to do that.
Good evening, Commissioners. What a great segue to follow that video as we move from response into recovery from COVID-19. Before I begin, introduce myself. For those who might be watching and don't know me, my name is Rachel Nygaard, and I work as the Strategic Partnerships Director. And the topic here is coronavirus local fiscal recovery funds. This is a piece of the overall broader American Rescue Plan. Sometimes we refer to these funds, people refer to these funds as American Rescue Plan. We've talked before about that context where the American Rescue Plan is the $1.9 trillion overall infusion of funds that was signed into law by the President in March, and local fiscal recovery funds are a component of that. This is the direct aid to states and counties and cities and towns all across the country, $65 billion to counties specifically, and $50 million, roughly, to Buncombe County. So the updates that I'm bringing you as briefing this evening are essentially what has occurred since we last talked, which has been almost a month, and next steps. We'll look at the Buncombe County process that we're applying to use of these funds. We'll update you on the surveys of both employees and community. We'll talk about the guidance that manager referenced. and then talk about next steps, which include the request for proposals and the spending plan. So this is a refresher on the process that we've been following. So far, we have gained the commissioner input from your working session. We gathered the community input and the employee input, and we received the initial guidance from Treasury. Before we get into the guidance, stopping briefly to talk about the survey results, we had a great amount of community participation in the survey, over 7,500 responses. As a reminder, that survey presented to the community the priorities that the commissioners came up with in your work session and asked members of the public to rank them and say which ones were most important to them. And you'll see which ones rose to the top: affordable housing, mental health, homelessness, workforce development, education, and so on. We also sorted those top priorities by the strategic plan focus areas, reminding you that it was an initial priority to invest in projects that align with the county's already adopted strategic plan focus areas. The highest category of responses was in the well-being section, followed by economy, then education, then environment. We also had a narrative question asking people, what other priorities would you like Buncombe County to consider in setting a spending plan for these recovery funds? We're still analyzing those responses, so the image on the screen is a word cloud. The larger the word, the more often, the more times that it appeared in the responses. Very much focused on people and their needs. You might remember we also ran a employee survey, which closed on the same date, May 14th. We asked our employees about the challenges that they see from their perspective in the county workforce, what they're hearing from the people that they serve, and what they think could have the best impact in helping Buncombe County recover. Those questions were also narrative, so we're looking through and analyzing those responses that came in and have shown you a similar snapshot of the words that appeared most often. Interim final rule. So on the 10th of May, we had the guidance in hand from the U.S. Treasury. Anyone who wants to dig in, a website that I recommend is NACO, which is the National Association of Counties. Is that right? NACO's website. They have a COVID-19 clearinghouse, and that you can look at the U.S. Treasury's fact sheet, frequently asked questions, and this document, which is called the Interim Final Rule, which is about 150 pages. So we've had that in hand since a week ago yesterday, and bring you some highlights here. One piece of information that we got is the exact dollar amount that will come our way. So you'll see that reflected here on the screen, $50,733,290. That's roughly $75,000 higher than the estimate we were working with. So great news. We got some facts about timelines. We owe to the Treasury Department our spending plan by August, the end of August. You'll hear when we talk timeline that we still intend to move more quickly than that here locally. We got clarification about various components that we've been waiting to hear in terms of, for example, we talked before about our administrative costs allowable. We got some answers on that. The other very important piece of information that came out of this guidance is the clarification on the eligible uses of funds and a pretty exhaustive list, extensive list anyway, of example uses of funds. So that begins on your next slide. The eligible uses of funds are laid out here in the blue, bold headers. Support the public health response, address negative economic impacts, replace public sector revenue loss, provide premium pay for essential workers, invest in water and sewer infrastructure improvements, and invest in broadband infrastructure. And we have details about what kinds of expenses within each of those are allowable. We also have long lists of example uses of funds. So this isn't a shall, it's more of a may within the language. Within, for example, public health response, we hear that funding could be used for vaccination, for medical expenses, testing, contact tracing, quarantine, etc. And so you can see all of that listed in the presentation and in your packet. So we've got this repeated for each of those eligible categories, negative economic impacts. Before I skip over replace public sector revenue loss, you heard the presentation from the county manager about our financial position, which is strong as an overall county. There's a specific calculation that we now have instructions on how to apply to our sources of revenue to identify in comparison to the baselines if any revenue loss that we've experienced could be eligible. So we're in the process of calculating that. We're also in the process of looking at our own public health responses and all those other funding streams and pots of funds to see, of all the activities that Buncombe County is taking on with direct response, like vaccination, will our public health funding, some of it also emanates from the same federal law, will that funding be sufficient enough to cover it, or would we want to recommend a portion of this to help with those public health responses? So I'll say the names of the categories and then talk about next steps. Public health response, public sector revenue loss, negative economic impacts, and again, for each of these, we now have the 4 examples. Premium pay for essential workers, water and sewer infrastructure, and broadband infrastructure. There's also clarification around equitable recovery and equity-focused services, looking at the sections of our community that have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic and making sure that those hardest hit, whether those are families, whether those are business sectors, that those hardest hit are supported with our spending plan. And then we got some more clarification around ineligible uses. So what do we do with all of this? We're in the process of developing an RFP. What we have in hand, as a reminder, we started with your commissioner input, gathered some community input, got some input from our workforce, looked at this Treasury guidance. We're currently and getting ready to take further steps on assessing all of those other American Rescue Plan Act funding streams, because remember, education or homelessness or business support might be a priority within our plan, and that this won't be the only revenue or funding stream that could go toward that community need. So we want to sort of have a landscape of what other funding is out there within our local community, Buncombe County as a place, whether or not it's Buncombe County as a government entity, and match and align our funds with that. We are calculating the general revenue loss. We will bring forward amendment to appropriate the recovery funds. You might remember me saying last time, we'll get the first half of the funds, the roughly 25 million, here shortly. Haven't seen it yet, but it should be arriving in May. So we can appropriate that. And then we are moving as quickly as possible toward that RFP, that request for proposals, so that we can allow our community-based organizations and our county departments to submit projects. The RFP on the public-facing side would be for organizations, and then there would be a sort of a parallel budget request form, similar to what the manager was describing, how capital projects get submitted and evaluated. That way we can capture ideas from all stakeholders, internal and external, evaluate those, and establish a spending plan. If that RFP, if we can have it ready by the beginning of June, we're working with CAPE, the Communications and Public Engagement Department, to have a website and a communication and engagement strategy to go with that release so we can support groups and people in their applications. We could be reviewing those proposals in July and hopefully make some awards within July so that early projects can begin in August. That is all I have.
Thank you, Rachel. We appreciate the overview, and of course, there's a lot of details to all that, so we look forward to taking a deeper dive into all that. But thanks for the updates.
Thank you.
Avril, anything else? All right, very good. We don't have any old business items, so we go to new business. And the first item is regarding a letter of support for refugee resettlement program, and Avril is going to explain this item.
Yes, sir. I have with me tonight Jesse, is it Buncombe? He's here from the Western Regional, he's the Western Regional Director for Catholic Charities, and he's here, he will present his program. And I believe online, we also have the person from Lutheran Services of the Carolinas, that she would also talk a little bit about her program, and then be opening up for discussion. So Jesse, if you'll come to the podium.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Jesse Bockerman. I live in East Asheville, just off of Riceville Road. And as Avril mentioned, I am the Western Region Director of Catholic Charities. I work out of our office in Buncombe County, which is at 50 Orange Street, just off of 240 in Merriman in Asheville, which is about 2 minutes away from where we are right now. Catholic Charities has a long history of working with refugees in Buncombe County. Since 2003, our office has been providing assistance to refugees in the form of case management, transportation, information and referrals, interpretation and translation, and citizenship preparation. In 2016, Catholic Charities began resettling refugees in Buncombe County through the Remote Placement Program, which facilitated the reunification of families separated for years. We've resettled 373 refugees in the past 5 years in the Asheville area. This month, Catholic Charities will submit an application to transition our remote placement program into a sub-office affiliated with our refugee resettlement program in Charlotte. I'm happy to talk about this in more detail, but in short, as a sub-office, we will have the opportunity and expectation to engage with community stakeholders like you in a more robust way and conduct long-term planning. With over 18 years of experience serving refugees in Buncombe County, this transition is quite natural. If our application is approved, our sub-office will open in October, although we don't expect to see a noticeable change in refugee arrivals until closer to the spring of next year. We anticipate the majority of our refugee arrivals will be family members reuniting with their loved ones in the Buncombe County area, and we're excited to play a role in bringing families together. We're enthusiastic about bringing refugees to Buncombe County for so many reasons, and here are just a few. Countless studies show refugees boost local economies through employment, generally taking many jobs that native-born Americans do not seek. A disproportionate number of refugees become small business owners, which creates more jobs in the community. And refugee resettlement reflects our American values of liberty and justice for all without discrimination. It respects the inherent dignity of every person, and it's the right thing to do. Thank you for your time tonight. Thank you, Ms. Pinder, for putting this issue on the agenda. And thank you, supervisors, for your service to the community. And if you have any questions about refugee resettlement, I'm here to answer those tonight. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Jesse. And
I believe that the one from Lutheran, Lilina, was going to bring her up so that she could speak.
Okay. Hello.
Good evening, commissioners, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. My name is Budria Yajic. I am a director of Refugee and Immigrant Services for Lutheran Services Carolinas. Lutheran Services Carolinas is a faith-based nonprofit organization that provides an array of services to local communities, from skilled nursing care to foster care, adoption, mental health services, refugee resettlement, support and service to survivors of human trafficking, disaster response, and residential care for people with disabilities across North Carolina as well as South Carolina. In North Carolina, Lutheran Services Carolinas has provided refugee resettlement services for over 40 years, since 1979. And since 2010, we have welcomed 1,247 newly arrived refugees in the Triangle area, Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. Lutheran Services Carolinas is a leader in refugee resettlement and serves refugees, immigrants, and other eligible populations through a variety of programs and in collaboration to meet the needs of this diverse and changing population. As a nonprofit organization and affiliate of Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service, and in response to the presidential determination on refugee admissions to the USA, LSC is proposing to open a small reception and placement program in Asheville for newly arrived refugees. The program proposes to serve a total of 100 individuals admitted through the United States Refugee Admissions Program, which of those 100, 80 may not have relatives in the area, and the other 20 may already have U.S. ties in Buncombe County. Once our proposal is approved by the State Department, Lutheran Services Carolinas will establish office in Asheville and hire and train staff that will provide direct assistance to refugees. We may expect to see our first refugees arrive to Asheville in January 2022. The goals of our resettlement program is to provide culturally and linguistically appropriate trauma-informed comprehensive case management and employment services to meet the needs of refugees. We provide services that strengthen and support the ability of a refugee individual or family to achieve and maintain economic self-sufficiency, family stability, and successfully integrate into the community. We also promote collaborative partnerships with faith and civil communities that foster and maintain a welcoming community and holistic approach to integration and adjustment for refugees that will be resettled in Asheville area. I would like to ask the commissioners to support the opening of Lutheran Services Carolinas Refugee Resettlement Program, which will provide support to refugees as resettled as non-U.S. tie cases without known family or friends in the United States, as well as the refugees reuniting with family members who live in Buncombe County. I appreciate your time and support, and thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioners, are there any questions at this time? I think we should adopt a motion to give guidance to the county manager about our support or opposition to this proposal. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to provide guidance to the county manager to move forward with letters of support for these sub-offices.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Thank you to everyone who shared information with us to educate us further about this proposed program. All right, the next item under new business, Jennifer Barnett, our budget director, is going to talk to us about a couple of different budget amendments, the first of which is related to project closures.
Yes, good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. Several weeks ago, I brought to you project closures for some other county funds. The Budget Office and Finance have been able to work together to reconcile the county's Capital Projects Fund, which is Fund 341. We are presenting to you for a budget amendment today to close the associated projects that are listed in the Exhibit A. These projects are complete and ready for closure. 2 projects are partial closures, and savings from those 2 projects, or savings from any of the projects, are limited to the 2015 LOBS debt issuance, which we've spoken previously about, which would have been related to the Health and Human Services expansion project, which we are looking to request to divert to use for the 40 Cox interior renovation for fiscal year 2022. So with that, I request approval.
Is there a motion to approve the budget amendment related to project closures?
So move.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next is a budget amendment for the AB Tech Workforce Training Center.
Yes, this budget amendment is related to Fund 333, which is our Article 46 Sales Tax Capital Fund. A reminder that Article 46 monies is a portion of sales tax that is dedicated to be used by AB Tech either for capital projects or as authorized for operating. The request is to establish the project in that fund with an amount not to exceed $5 million as the partnership for Pratt & Whitney and AB Tech to build and operate an estimated 20,000 square foot workforce training center. And this ordinance establishes the budget for site improvement, facility design, facility construction, and FF&E, so furnishings, fixtures, and equipment.
All right, and this facility would be owned by AB Tech, or will it be owned by Buncombe County? Who actually would be the owner of the improvement, like the actual built facility? Buncombe County?
I believe while it is being debt financed, we would own it so that we could use as collateral, but I'll look to Don to shake his head yes or no. Free is shaking his head yes.
Okay. So AB Tech will be responsible for sort of operating the workforce training programs, but the real estate improvements themselves, this will be a building owned by Buncombe County. We're going to provide debt financing for it, so we would need to be the owner for this.
Correct.
Process. Okay. Thank you. And the other question, comment, I guess I would have is that so while the ramp up for the hiring of the approximately 800 employees for the Pratt & Whitney facility will be the focus over the next couple of years as that training process is accomplished and there's not an ongoing need for such a large number of folks, it is AB Tech's intent to operate this as an ongoing workforce training program for many different business sectors in Buncombe County on an ongoing basis. Is that right?
That is correct. That is our understanding in conversation with AB Tech.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, is there a motion regarding the budget amendment for the AB Tech Workforce Training Center?
So move.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And lastly, a budget amendment regarding governmental accounting standards board adjustments.
Yes, during our last budget work session and in conversation around fiscal year 2022 budget development, you heard me talk about a need to establish some new funds and then establish some additional budgets as part of the general fund. Those changes that are required by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board need to take place in the current fiscal year, so fiscal year 21. The first page as part of the attachment to your request for board action outlines in the traditional form that you would see for a request for our annual budget ordinance. We've established the new funds outlined in that same familiar ordinance. And the new funds are the Register of Deeds Trust Fund with a expenditure and revenue requested appropriation of $400,000, a representative payee fund, which is it's trust accounts that we hold or custodians for on behalf of foster children. And so that request is for an appropriation for revenues and expenditures of $500,000. And then a school fines and forfeitures funds in a total dollar amount for revenues and expenses of $2 million. So that concludes the creation and request for new funds. And then the following pages include a request to add to the current Fire Service District Fund, additionally Asheville City Schools. So we collect the Asheville City Schools supplemental tax. And then this fund, just as we do for fire districts, we collect and pass those dollars back through to the fire districts. So we would be adding to this fund, as all special taxing districts, the Asheville City supplemental tax that we would pass back through. That total estimated increase for 21 for their supplemental tax and associated sales tax is $16 million. And the final request around compliance with the GASB 84 is to include in the general fund, specifically for the Register of Deeds, and then the ID Bureau. So we collect concealed handgun revenue, and then we collect electronic birth registration system fee revenue, which we turn around back to the state. So the increase for the general fund is a request of a total of revenues and expenditures in the amount of $157,000.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the budget ordinance and amendments related to the Governmental Accounting Standards Board adjustments as outlined by, in the staff report and in the presentation?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
All right, commissioners, we have a couple of board appointments to go over. The first one is the Asheville Board of Adjustments. And we have one current member who's applying to serve a second term. Make a motion to appoint Bill Newman.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? On the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, there is a recommendation to appoint Shannon Martin. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? On Mount Airy Workforce Development Board, there is one recommendation nominated by the Chamber of Commerce to appoint Steve Newman. I'll make a motion to appoint Steve Newman. No relationship to, I don't have any relationship to Steve Newman or Bill Newman, but they're both very well qualified candidates. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And lastly, under Health and Human Services, we have one reappointment, and Savannah Lamb would like to serve a second, I'm sorry, this is a new appointment, is recommended for appointment.
I move to approve Dr. Savannah Lamb.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that concludes our boards and commissions for the evening. Mr. Joyner, is there anything we need to know? Okay. No problem. No problem. All right, commissioners, got a couple of announcements. On June 1st at 3 p.m., the county commissioners will hold their next briefing meeting at 200 College Street, room 326 in downtown Asheville. And then at 5 p.m. on June 1st, the commissioners will hold their next regular meeting at 200 College Street, room 326 in downtown Asheville. We do have a need for a closed session. Mr. Free, could you explain? Yes, sir.
I would make an announcement, not an announcement, but have you consider the July meeting. Previously, we canceled the July meeting, so just to have clarity on that going forward.
Okay. Question is, are we going to have, we sometimes don't have both of our meetings in July. So that's a good question. So is there, what's currently on the calendar? Is it currently calendared or not calendared?
I think we've been holding off. We don't have a lot that we can push right now, so we don't have a lot calendared.
Good.
So, I mean, I think of course, the 4th of July is the beginning of July. So we could plan on not holding a meeting the first week of July.
That would be the 6th.
We got that. We need to talk about it too. Early childcare, yeah.
Yeah.
town that third week.
Oh, you're out of town the third. Okay. Yeah, it seems a little,
So would you let us look at the calendar and see if there's anything that needs to come forward, and we'll get back to you on June 1st?
sure. And of course, there could be things that emerge between now and then, right? So, but let's kind of come up with a tentative plan, and we can always schedule an additional meeting if there's a need. All right, but we're not gonna meet on the week of July
4th.
the first week of July. Is that agreement around that?
Okay.
All right, very good. Mr. Frew, what's the purpose of the closed session?
Yes, sir. Need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to GS 143, 318, 11A, 3 and A5. So two purposes: to preserve the attorney-client privilege and also to discuss material terms of a contract or proposed contract for the acquisition of real property. Expect direction from the board to staff.
Okay. Thank you very much. So we're going to have discussion. When we return from closed session, we're anticipate simply adjourning. We're not going to take any action on these items tonight. We're just going to dialogue with legal counsel about them. Is there a motion to go into closed session? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we're in closed session.